Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Nice. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Before we even get started, we'd like to do a quick poll. Who in the audience has heard of WWE before just seeing that amazing promo video? Anybody not ever heard of WWE? Okay, good. Do you know what these things are on the stage here, these belts? See if some show of hands for that. Okay, so we're going to talk you through an amazing new studio that was just built, but we're going to finish up a little bit early so that if anybody wants to, you can come up and get a photo with these belts. Does that sound like a good deal? All right, so we'll just ask that during the presentation you pay a lot of attention and look very interested so everybody thinks it's a great panel. All right, my name is Noah Kadner. I am the virtual production editor at American Cinematographer Magazine. I host the Virtual Production Podcast, and I wrote the Virtual Production Field Guide series for Epic Games, and I am extremely excited to present the following group of super smart people, and this is our third time, so we're going to try and nail it this time because we're thinking we're going to Broadway next. Take it away.
My name is Joe Solari. I am the VP of Studio Operations for the WWE.
Hi, everybody. I'm Russ Kornstein. I'm the SVP of On-Air Promotions, and thank you for coming out.
Hey, I'm Nick Rivero, and I'm the co-founder of Meptic, and we're the virtual production integrator on this project.
Jamie Raffone, Senior Manager for Sony's Virtual Production Solutions.
I'm Jason Zapata. I'm the Director of Integration at Able Cine.
Okay, so if you're familiar with WWE, you know that they have an amazing amount of content that they produce, which we'll get into the exact volume of soon, but it's a lot. And they've recently added a brand new tool to their arsenal, which is a state-of-the-art virtual production studio in which city?
Stamford, Connecticut.
Stamford, Connecticut, where it all happens. So before we get too deep into the weeds of all the cool technical stuff behind that, we have a quick clip that'll just show you an overview of what this studio looks like and how it was a partnership between Sony, Able Cine, and Meptic to bring it to life. Let's see that.
WWE is bringing the first of its kind virtual production stage to our new studios at WWE.
To create immersive experiences for their events.
To be better at telling their stories, to do it in unique ways.
The Crystal LED Verona and their application couldn't be a better match.
To create like you've never been able to create before.
Gone are the days of green screen.
You could be in Bali one day and you can be in Africa the next day.
It's just amazing.
They're really just going to be wow.
They're going to be blown away.
It's unreal, and that's f***ing true.
I love that little flavor in there at the end. So real quick, how many of the folks in the audience are familiar with virtual production, have been on one of these stages? Okay, a fair number. So you're kind of seeing a bit of that technology behind us right now. We are, in effect, on a virtual production stage, but at a slightly smaller scale to what they're building at the studios. So real quick, can you walk us through what was interesting to WWE about this technology? What do you hope to accomplish with it?
The WWE would like to go big. We like to push the boundaries on what we do and really engage our fans in new and creative ways. And that's something that's really appealing with virtual production. The world where technology meets art, and at this really beautiful intersection where it gives you the ability to do things in ways that that have been done but really have never been done before. You're used to shooting on a green screen. With virtual production, it kind of changes the workflow around a little bit. So there are things to get used to where you work more in pre-production, but it really presents some unique challenges and exciting ways to deliver content.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, I echo that. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I mean, really, we pride ourselves on innovating in the space of sports and entertainment, and what this does is allow us to tell different kinds of stories, more immersive stories, showcase our talent and their characters in ways we've never done before, bring the fans closer to the characters, and just kind of blow people's minds along the way. We are in a new era. I like to call it the era of cinema, and that's exactly what we're about to explore.
So I'm going to skip down a few notches for a second because I want to try and walk people through the order of how this came together. Jason, Able Cine has a long-term relationship with Sony over the years and with WWE. How did that come together from the integration side?
Sure thing. So, like I was just saying, like the new era for WWE. I like the era of cinema. Able Cine has a long tradition in being a cinema company. So it made sense to look at this project from a new perspective and say, okay, what's the right camera to bring into? What's the right technologies? We're always trying to push the right technologies forward and look for the appropriate solution for our customers. So when WWE approached us with this opportunity for the studio, our initial scope was kind of like cameras, lenses, and lighting, and then the idea of the wall started getting floated around. So we partnered with Meptic and Sony to provide, the Venice 2 was the camera of choice with the Fujinon Permista lenses and the Sony Verona wall, and that combination just really brings it to the next level, and it looks absolutely amazing, like nothing we've really seen before.
So skip back over a second to Nick, describe a little bit how you fit into this process and how that kind of led to the usage of Sony, not only for all of the camera gear and the broadcast gear, but the wall itself.
Yeah, so we came in the conversation with Jason, the Able team, and had some relationship there for some time with working with Able. And having been in the space, what we do is really the ideation to the execution of virtual production facilities. So we spent a bit of time working across this kind of whole team here to understand the needs, the use, the facility, the technology, the camera stack, every kind of piece of the puzzle, and then bring that eventually to life.
Okay, Jamie, you're up. Finally, describe for us a little bit about what Sony's interest is in the virtual production world. What do they bring to the table? Because obviously we're in a room chock full of competitors. Take us through that vision.
Honestly, Sony's been an imaging company for many, many decades. We've been a display company for many, many decades, and the ability to bring these products together and really develop an ecosystem for virtual production made sense. We've been in production, we've been in broadcast, we're in cinema, and bringing all of this product and workflow with partners like Able and Meptic and creating something that the industry was wanting is really what Sony's all about. We cater to the creator world, and our ecosystem was specifically designed by pulling product from that history of technology that we have been grounded in for so many years. So everything from lens to living room follows a colorimetry pipeline, and it makes the Sony solution so much better when you have these combined products.
All right, well, let's take a quick look at what we're talking about here. I'm going to make the clicker go here. There we go. Okay, so this looks like a very important phase of this production, the rack and stack. Nick, tell the folks at home what's going on here and why is this such a critical piece of the process?
Yeah, so in this photo, we're trying to make it work. So we basically, this was kind of into the installation process, and what you're seeing is the main initial wall going into the space, and that was about halfway up in the build process, and we worked on the design and iteration of that. And as the Verona panel's a new tile, we had to do a bit of work to understand the best way to mount, the best way it fits in the studio, and it fits pretty snugly overall wall to wall with about a foot to spare on one side of it. And then we worked with a company out of Atlanta called Atlanta Rigging Systems, and Atlanta Rigging does what they say. They rig things, they build structures. We'd worked with them on about 3 other prior virtual production facilities to build the entire encompassing structure. And then WWE actually had a long relationship on their live events side with them, so we brought them in to help understand and custom fabricate that structure. And it's a pretty unique structure because it's actually meant to give it a portability so it can move, and then also get the panels within just a few millimeters of ground clearance. So we actually don't have any kind of large footer or anything obstructing any kind of the use case of the wall, so you get the full visibility of the whole image. And so that was, like I said, about halfway into the process of the build.
So Joe and Russ, like, what was this room something before? Was it repurposed, and where does it kind of fit into the overall facility that it's sitting in as far as like scale and usage?
So no, this room was a newly built studio inside the Stamford facility with the purpose of taking on a virtual production stage for the WWE. You know, Abel came in with Meptic and did a really good job at figuring out configurations. We went through a few different iterations of what the layout was going to be in the space, and I think, you know, Meptic really hit the ball out of the park on what they finally delivered.
All right, I'm going to go one forward. Let's see what's next. Okay. Now things are getting a little more turned on, a little more interesting. So Nick, I see test patterns are going on here. Disguise is coming on here. This looks like it's getting to be more kind of finished, right?
Yeah. So this is when we got it turned on. So this is once the wall was completely built into the space, and what you're looking at is obviously image on the wall, front and back, and you know, built around the Verona panel. And what I'll say to that is it really is an astounding panel when you see it in real life, and it looks really sharp. I know Jamie can speak more of the specifics, but you know, just incredible vividness of image, incredible off-angle viewing of the panel. It looks really great, really tuned for virtual production, not only in the use case, but also in the build sense. And so what you see here is the wall coming to life, and the studio is powered by Disguise, and if you aren't familiar by Disguise, it's really the gold standard of visual experience in virtual production. It powers everything from shows at the Sphere to major tours, award shows, things of that nature. And the reason we're powering the studio here is it's a really versatile, powerful platform, but also content agnostic, and that's a huge thing. And what we really want to do is empower the studio to have the most flexibility, the most use case, the most versatility, so that they can create the most content possible in the most unique ways. And so we can do everything from 2D content to full Unreal, real time, and we can switch between those. We can do all sorts of things like set extensions, so using AR to actually extend that wall for broadcast use cases. All of that ability and functionality is built in the Disguise ecosystem, empowering the studio.
So, Jason, this looks like not just a stage that's meant for shooting LED volume kind of stuff, but also is a standard kind of like multi-camera broadcast space. Like, how does that work? What are the challenges that might come into play that would be different from just creating something that's a multi-camera shoot without the virtual production aspect?
Yeah, so you know, when you have a virtual background and you're shooting with multi cameras, you have to make sure that the background matches whatever camera it cuts to. So that's always something to take into consideration. And in this space, you know, not only was it going to be used for a virtual backdrop, but with the other spaces we were working on as well, you know, very multi-purpose. So we wanted to make sure that it was set up in a way where, you know, if we're doing one camera, like cinema style shooting for promos with talent, it's ready to go for that. If you're bringing in multiple cameras, you know, maybe a jib, that it's, you know, ready to go for that. And so we had a very versatile lighting set up in there that you could see, you know, above the LED wall there around the ring of fire. You could see we got Airy Sky panel. Those are the X21s, and then we have two Lightyear Aurorases directly above the stage, and that provides, you know, a lot of even lighting, a lot of soft lighting. It could also be, you know, created off to provide some more hard lighting. WWE's also got lights on stands that they can bring in for more creative, you know, looks. So, you know, we wanted to make it a very versatile space so that regardless of what type of content was going to be shot in there, they would have what they needed to, you know, complete the job.
So, Jamie, going to go to you next. There are obviously a lot of LED manufacturers on this floor, but it seems to me that Sony does bring a unique advantage in the sense that they make a lot of the rest of the ecosystem. Like, what is that? Is that the goal? Like, describe a little bit about that, the kind of holistic approach that Sony would take.
Yeah, we've had the Crystal LED technology in our pipeline or our product line for over 15 years. And this particular product, Verona, is purpose-built for virtual production. And we've made a conscious decision as a company that this is a market and an industry that we were made to service. We make all of those imaging products and cameras. We make the LED walls. We were able to bring in the right partners to integrate into the ecosystem required. And through our great engineering and R&D teams, we've been able to create virtual production tool sets that actually help efficiencies in the entire workflow of virtual production. Moire detection, color calibration. We partner very closely with Unreal Engine, and so we have a virtual Venice plugin, and that's one of the tool sets that has been sought after since we launched it. This particular Verona product is so new to the industry that WWE is the first install in the United States, so we're really proud of that. They were one of the first demos to see it from a prototype straight off the loading docks. So
wow.
We've all worked really hard on this project to, meet new partners. Sony and Meptic, this was our first job working together, working with long partners like Able Cine, who we've had a relationship for decades, and it all came together really nicely. And that's really what we're going to do with the continuation of workflow for virtual production.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let me go one more slide. Okay, so Nick, is this, I'm assuming this is a very nice conceptual image and not a final
That's
photo,
the finished working studio.
So this strikes me as a little unusual because the back wall is a design that's pretty familiar to me, but what's happening on the sides with it looks like they're maybe made mobile or something, those sidewalls?
Yeah, so what you hadn't seen in the pictures are those two sidewalls, and to kind of back up is we spent a bit of time with Joe, with Abel, with Sony in the design process, and we went through, I think this ended up being about the 7th iteration of the volume, and what we try to do is understand the client's needs, the technology limitations, the best use case, and it's kind of a huge puzzle that has to be assembled. We don't just build a wall. We really have to understand all those variables, and in the process of understanding, we actually started with a wall that was about 90 degrees turned and much bigger, but a singular wall. And as we kind of went through the process, we looked at big walls, small walls, corner walls, much more curved walls. We looked at kind of every permutation of what could work best in the space. And this was the one Joe and I really aligned on. And what you see is two things, is starting with the main wall. It's about 20 feet by just over 13 feet, and it's about 2.5K in res on that wall. But what we did is we built these two, what you might call auxiliary walls or wild walls. And the idea between those is they're free moving. So the purpose of those is, yes, to do things like ambient lighting, infill, but the other thing is we can use those as full backdrops, as other screens, and those are the same panels on the main wall. And so the purpose of those is to be completely free moving, that they could do a shot just on the back end of the room, but there's also a dual versatility that we can actually take those into their other studios. So that really gave the wall just this kind of plethora of use cases, that it could be one really enveloped production in this space or multiple productions in other spaces. And so in that process, we evaluated those use cases. We worked on with Sony, with Jason Metcalf, on understanding just the limitations of how far the panels can be pushed. And then we worked with Able to do a lot of camera simulations. So we actually used the Sony plugins to understand the Moire, to understand the Venice, to basically understand what the best lensing would be, because those are big deals when you're in a fixed space. It's only about, I'd say about 35 feet from the front of the panel to the back wall. So we really had to understand how's the best permutation this all comes together.
Yeah, no, I'm impressed by, this is a very compact setup, so I know that, cramming that much tech in that size of a room is a feat. Joe and Russ, what kinds of content do you expect to create with this setup? I mean, for folks that are familiar with the kinds of shows you put on, the live productions, everything, what would be the expected uses for this facility?
Sure. Well, listen, I can't talk tech like these guys, so I appreciate just being here, learning a lot. But I could tell you, as far as the content creation standpoint, no-brainer is to get our talent in there, cycle them through, create worlds and hype sets for branded IDs with this talent. Another usage would be leaning into our characters. Let's say one of our characters, their persona is, they're from the backwoods, right? And we could put them in the middle of a swamp and make a mini movie if we wanted to. The possibilities are really endless if you think about it. So anyone who's familiar with our characters, how deep their storylines go, and that's what we're going to do in this playground. We're going to tell a lot of stories.
All right, I'm going to advance one slide. Okay, this one's going to go back to Nick. This looks like, to me, and and I've seen this slide a couple times, so I'm doing this for the benefit of the audience, but this looks like to me a camera with a tracking device set up in front of the screen. Describe a little bit how that works and what that'll be used for.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, camera tracking is one of the most fundamental pieces of virtual production outside of the panels and the cameras. And so camera tracking is really the very precise process of finding the camera in the real world and matching that one-to-one in the virtual world to give us that depth, that parallax in real time. And in this case, we worked and chose the Stipe Red Spy V3 system, and the reason for the choice there is not only do we have personally a lot of history and experience with the systems, but WWE as well. If you're not familiar in all the incredible content they create, they actually create a lot of AR content in-house already on live productions, on air. They're already doing that and very familiar, and they already were using Stipe on their live production, so it became a really natural choice in terms of that, but it's also a really great choice because it's a quick, easy setup system. It's that little can sitting on top of the camera. And one of the reasons we really like is it adds very little bulk to the camera, because we know from working with directors and DPs, they don't like lots of stuff on the camera, and that's one of the really great reasons is we can do that. We actually run a PoE line back to a server room, and the server is actually way down the hall in another space, and makes it all happen.
Okay, like you give me an idea for a good two-parter for Russ and Joe. How much retraining or rehiring will be necessary to find the kind of staff that will be able to create optimal content for this studio? And for the folks in the audience, if somebody wanted to get into a potential career for creating this kind of content, what sort of skill sets should they be leaning into?
Joe, this question is ripe for you.
No, so we do have the people in-house that can create content for this. They already exist, and they create AR content for our tour. And with any new gear, there's a certain amount of training that you're going to have to do in order to become proficient with it. I think the biggest thing with this technology, is opposed to what we used in the past, is the change in workflow. We were in a very, post-production mindset when it came to workflow. Now we have to, in a way, reprogram ourselves to think more in a pre-production workspace and apply it to this this new stage. So I think that's the biggest retraining that we have to do.
And part two, recap, what if folks want to get into this as a career? What would be a useful skill set to have, to study? Not necessarily saying they're going to get a job at WWE. I'm just saying in general. And Jamie's like aching over there. Okay, Jamie, you go.
I'm going to take that one. So I'll kind of backtrack a little bit because I think it's important, but Sony has a big philanthropic purpose and endeavor when it comes to educating the next wave of talent, right? We all need to hire good talent. And for many years, we've dedicated time to the broadcast and television schools and journalism and mass communications. And now we've had a very strong focus on film schools and programs from gaming and content creation. So because virtual production as a whole is evolving so dramatically, we're evolving what we target, and we'll continue to do that. But the foundation is always the same, which is we want to help those schools and those students so that when they get out, they have jobs. And one of the things that we really try to do is partner with companies like WWE for internships and programs. And we work with companies like Able, who have a very specific education program to help write the curriculum for some of these new emerging technologies like virtual production.
As long as those interns are willing to run out and get lunches and dinners, that sounds great.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. Okay, let's move on to another slide. Okay, Meptic. I guess this is your chance for a quick plug, Nick. Tell us a little bit about Meptic and in general the mission that you're trying to accomplish.
Our really goal is to really help. We have a tagline that says upset reality, and I think what we really live on is this new spectrum of reality, from physical experiences to fully digital experiences. It's really the new chapter of storytelling. It is the era of cinema. I think we live in this world where everything is through the lens of a camera now. No matter where you live, we sit in front of computers staring at a camera all day, talking to people. All of us are content creators in some way, shape, or form. And that's what we aim to do, is help empower that next generation because, going back to the university point, we've actually built quite a few volumes for universities. We started with Savannah College of Art and Design many years ago. And now this is the baseline of what is possible. And I think that's exciting. Is it's new now, but it's not going to be new for the next generation 20 years from now. It's going to be the standard. And I think what that means is the level of storytelling is just going to go exponential with what's potential is. We know we can do virtual locations and bring the desert indoors, but that's only the tip of the iceberg I think we're about to hit. And I think, WWE is going to explore that because they just create some incredible content, and this allows that next evolution.
All right, I'm going to go one more slide. Believe it or not, we're getting close to the end of our time, which means belt time is coming. So, somebody already advanced for me. All right. So, Jason, I see this is lit up. Now, is this stage designed to be used in a live scenario, or is it mainly like a post-production, or can it be both?
It could certainly be both. We wanted to make sure it was as versatile as possible for WWE. So we have lighting that's able to be controlled and synced with the servers that are running the wall to mimic what's going on the screen. So you could do something like this would be more for like a promo logo shot, and we got the WWE red up on the grid. If it's a scene where like I said earlier, like you're in the swamp, lighting could be dark and green, and it'll kind of match what's going on the screen. We also wanted to make sure that the camera system can tie into the overall infrastructure of the building, which is great that it was a new construction because we were able to get in at the right time, and all the infrastructure was already in place, so we're able to tap into that. So it could be used as an independent black box studio, a live VP insert studio, so it could hopefully do whatever they need it to do.
All right, I'm going to go one more slide. And I think that's the end of our deck. So before we wrap up, Joe Russ, any ideas of where this tech might go in the future? I mean, obviously people are watching on many different types of devices these days that go way beyond just linear TV. What kind of interactive experiences do you see in the future that would enhance the storytelling even more, using this kind of tech or pie in the sky stuff?
Do you have anything?
Content is king when it comes to fan engagement. I think this gives us some really good ways to conceive, create, and deliver that content faster than ever before. As to how we use it, in future productions, I think only time will tell, but we are the WWE. We like to go big, so I don't think anything is really off the table.
One thing I want to add, I think Joe would agree, but the studios at WWE are brand new. This is only one of our studios, and with that said, we are open for business, to outside sports outfits. If NFL wanted to come in and do something with the players, well, let's go.
I think, like I've said, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's possible, and I think the really exciting thing is kind of I was talking to Russ about is when you have this in-house and you have a really capable team of designers, it becomes a really awesome kind of just creative lab, basically. And I think, with virtual production, these things, frankly, it takes a lot to build these studios. And then when you have one, that's when you can really experiment. And when you start experimenting, that's when you start building these new permutations. You find new ways to tell stories. You find innovative ways. And I think, speaking for you, but I think it's going to aid the ability to create content faster, because you can just walk around the corner and say, let's look at this. Let's see what this could look like. Let's test it. Let's take a look. We've got the Venice sitting in there. We can pop this content in and you can shoot, And I know speaking from a team of designers as well, it's really valuable to be able to see your own content on a volume. And to be able to do that in-house, I think is really going to allow them to tell some new stories.
And I'll just add to that from Sony's perspective, I love the what's next question, right? Like what comes next? How are you going to use it? Pushing the envelope, right? We have customers that tell us, my job is to try to break this or to push that technology to the edge. Well, we're an innovation company, and that's what we do. So every time we can partner with someone and collect that voice of customer, and they can ask us for that next best thing, we go back and we make it. And that's how we got here today. So I'm excited to see what's next.
Right on.
And from a fan perspective, I grew up watching the WWE, and I was always like enthralled by like the promos that would be shot. Like at the big events, you'd have the whole backstory that would be told before the big main event. So, really excited to see like where this goes and how they're going to push the narratives forward. So just very excited to see what's in store, and really actually honored to be a part of this project. It took a village. Like everybody up on this stage, contributed a ton, and it was an amazing project, and really can't wait to see where it goes next.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, one thing I learned just in all these talks is that it really does take a huge collaborative effort. We assembled a team of the best experts and really are going to really make some magic. So very excited to see where all this goes.
All right, on that note, how about a round of applause? Thank you. And for anybody who would like to get a photo op with these belts, which are replicas, so don't get any ideas, don't walk off with them, start lining up on the left side of the stage over there, and you are welcome to take any photos you would like. And thank you again very much.